Not very thick. I'm talking, I'd probably say about 50 thousandths. Now this isn't going to be flat and this isn't going to be right, but it's going to be quick.
How long do you usually take to do it?
I usually take about 20 minutes from start of the process to finish. My first one took me about a good hour.
How thick is the copper underneath?
Say that again?
How thick is the copper? You said it was really
Thin.
thin.
It's about half the half the thinness of the yeah. But the thing is you'll see if I show you now, it's starting to go copper.
Yeah.
But the outsides are wearing faster because I'm putting most pressure on the outsides. The outsides, the die is like usually directly in the middle. Makes sense. So the outsides, you can kind of get away with it. But like I'm doing this very fast as well. You know, make sure you're keeping equal pressure on the outside. And it will go all totally down to copper.
Oh yeah.
And the
That's beautiful.
The one problem I do have that I didn't quite prepare myself for is some of you might ask, how do you know when you've gone too far?
I was going to ask you next.
I've never actually thought of that. I kind of just went down till I saw nothing but copper and kind of then went to the next grit, and kind of got to the ultra fine surface. I don't know how to know when you've gone too far or when you're close to going too far.
It doesn't work.
Can't you wear off the zinc on the side?
Say that?
Can't you wear off the zinc on the side of the top?
The side of the top.
Yeah. Like, yeah. This side is zinc coated
Right.
as well. You could wear that off and see the layer of copper underneath.
All you're saying is like a test?
Yeah, just sort of a measuring stick.
I guess that would work. That would.
But what if it's not even under there?
It won't be even.
Yeah.
The zinc will not be even. The copper most likely won't be even. So you can't just kind of, I guess you hold merit where you say, take a general idea of a measurement just so you can kind of get a rough estimate, but it's not going to be fail-safe by any means.
Yeah, that's nothing but copper coming off there now. Nice red.
I didn't take all the
Dust.
zinc off though, for speed purposes.
Yeah, there's a little bit of silvery zinc on there.
So by making it flat, let me reiterate this and make sure I
Okay.
get the point. By making it flat, it makes it closer to the heatsink.
It
and
makes
more
all-
even.
Makes all levels of the processor
Right.
closer to heat. Like I was showing before, you might have one section of the processor that's raised higher than the rest, and that is going to get the most attention. Now, what they tell you to do is put heatsink compound on the top of the processor, and that way the heatsink compound will help dissipate the heat all over the place, even though it might only be making contact in one solid area of the processor. So by doing this, we're eliminating that one solid point. We're trying to make it more equally dispersed. You still want to use heatsink compound because it still gives that layer of any pits, any kind of grooves, any variables in there. It still gets rid of that. The only time I would say not using heatsink compound is if you know put it on a machine and make it to like 2,000ths, flat. I mean, it's perfectly flat. You ain't gonna do that by hand.
And how are you going to measure that?
You ain't.
No, exactly.
The reason why it's not done in the first place, like he was saying, like you asked before, speed of manufacture. If you could put this on an assembly line, they stamp the die, they mold the die, they put the pins on, okay? They cover it with copper, or, well, I'm not sure what's right on top of the die. There's another material right on top of the die. That's the first layer of heat dispersion.
Gold.
Are you sure? We're going gold it is.
Yeah, they were talking about mining.
Okay, and then a layer of copper, and then that top zinc coating. That top zinc coating is usually for most protective purposes, you know, for dust, contaminants, that kind of thing. Why I wouldn't leave copper the most out, I have no idea. However, zinc is what they use.
Copper tarnishes.
There we go.
Turns green, but it takes 9 years to do that.
Well, it oxidizes too, yeah.
Yeah.
So introduce a catalyst like water or any kind of moisture, humidity.
Moisture.
There it goes. Okay, so that makes
Atmosphere.
perfect sense now. Okay, so they use zinc. Screw the zinc. So that's
You only need it to work for a couple of years and then you upgrade anyway.
in my case,
They'll make a cool t-shirt, screw the zinc.
screw zinc.
Yeah, all over.
Imagine,
Science class.
imagine a world without zinc.
So what we decided to do is sand off the top layer of that process. Sand off the top layer, you can do the heat sink too. Usually heat sinks are a little more stock from the manufacturer heat sinks from A&D, from Intel, that the ones they give you. Pieces of junk too, just like the top of that process. For stock purposes, they meet all standards. They'll work. If you're overclocking, you're putting your processor through hell basically. We're going to sand off the top layer. We're going to sand off the top layer of this as well. Aftermarket heat sinks are very, very good. They're usually really flat. They don't have the manufacturing defects you would have straight from AMD or Intel because they mass produce them on a very large scale, sell millions of processors. So doing this might not necessarily be worth it, but to me, if you're going to do the processor, you might as well do the heatsink as well. This right here, I don't even know what this one was rated, but I know it definitely increased the rating even though it was already pretty much close. As you can see, it was all copper plating. I mean, it was already virtually flat, but I made it slightly flatter.
Made it shiny.
Now, the numbers. I have proof to back this up with my own personal work as well as many other resources. Let's say my dual core processor that I had straight from AMD, their thermal paste that they had on it, it ran idle 34 degrees Celsius. Running full games, it was touching 40. Not too bad, but still over time it can cause a concern, especially if you're doing a hardcore game. I use that heatsink in the condition it's in, and I lapped the dual core. I did not bring the dual core, it was sold. But I lapped them both. It took it down from about 34 degrees Celsius idle to about 23 degrees Celsius idle.
Whoa.
10 to 11
that's
degrees
less,
Celsius, that's huge.
That's less than room temperature. 23.
No, it wasn't. It was at my room temperature. It was in there. I'm not even joking.
You have a cold room.
No, that was idle. At full load, it still got up in the mid-30s. It's not foolproof, but it still is better than the 40s that it was normally at. So, I mean...
But still, you won't have a molten pile of what used to be.
Right. I do not have... I have my heatsink that I'm using right now. The heatsink is lapped. My processor is not. And I am touching... I've upgraded to a tri-core, and playing Crisis on full spec, I'm maxing out at about 44. And I'm going to lap soon and see a difference, because I know it'll give me a huge difference. And the reason why I can get less than room temperature is that I literally had a duct going to my window in the middle of winter, and I am not.
Oh, a duct. I thought you said a duck.
I had a ventilation duct going to my window. In the
You had a
middle of
duck
winter.
in your
And
window.
I
How did that make?
not lying on that one bit.
Oh, that's cool. That's real hardcore though.
I want to see how far I can get that dual core.
Ah.
Oh, hey, let's talk about the overclocking numbers. That dual core was rated at 2.7. With that lapped middle of winter, With the air, I had it up to 3.5.